Welcome to Behind the Bricks. This is your host, Rachel L. Gary. And today we have a program manager, project manager, whose background is in engineering, who provides fact-based consulting for residential, commercial, development, redevelopment, and also HUD consulting. For 20 years in the real estate sector, I am excited to bring to the show Vaughn Harrison. Welcome, Vaughn.
Thank you very much for having me, Rachel. I really appreciate that, the welcome and presentation that you gave me. It's really appreciated. Thank you for having me also. This is an honor. Seriously, this is a tremendous honor.
Thank you. So did I miss anything that you want our viewers to know?
I'm telling my age. I think I have about 25 years right now of experience. I've been doing this quite some time. I did come from corporate. So again, I'm telling my age, but yeah, it's been about 25 years now.
Okay. Our little gray hairs tell on us anyway, Vaughn.
I have a lot of gray hair. I try and keep my hair cut close so that no one can see it, but it comes through my mustache and kind of beard.
Because like right here, this is gray. This is all gray hair. I tell people, I said, my daughter said, "Are you gonna dye them?" I said, "For what?" I said that's wisdom with those gray hairs.
It's wisdom.
I'm bringing the wisdom back.
It's wisdom. That's right.
So let's dive in, Vaughn. So I met Vaughn during my search for a perfect investment. And what I respected about Vaughn was his analytical approach to providing me a feasibility report. That report saved my investment career. And which is why I brought him on the show, so he could share some of that insight that's going to help you provide the best information that is going to be necessary for you to invest properly on a 203k loan. So, Vaughn, can you expound on what a HUD consultant is, and how do you help, and why people are happy and afraid when they hear your name?
Hey there, CEO. Don't forget to click that link and get your 7-day challenge. Remember, it's free. It's aligned with you being the person who has clarity in your actions, who's empowered by your choices, and who's owning your direction to be the CEO of my life.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that. Yeah, some folks are extremely happy when they hear my name, and some folks cringe for various reasons, which we'll talk about during this interview. So, fundamentally, I like to say a HUD consultant is sort of like a project manager, even though it's not really a project manager, but the HUD consultant is the subject matter expert, so to speak, for construction. The HUD consultant helps to give you unbiased and honest information about the property. At the fundamental level, a HUD consultant is required to confirm whether or not the property meets what's called minimum property requirements. And if it does not meet minimum property requirements, what work must be done so that the property does meet those requirements? Now, you have property requirements that are FHA specific, and of course you've got VA, you've got home style, et cetera, et cetera. But the HUD consultant should always be able to represent you as the project owner and share with you any risks, any construction insight, true costs of construction, and then also help to manage that project from the beginning of the project all the way through the end of the project. The HUD consultant is doing what's called draw inspections. A draw inspection is when the HUD consultant goes out to confirm first that the correct permits have been pulled, that the correct inspections have been done, and the work has been executed as it's aligned with the written scope of work. Only when that has been confirmed can the general contractor or contractor get paid for that phase of work. And that happens throughout the entire project lifecycle. Now, a very critical piece, and you kind of alluded to this a couple of seconds ago, a very critical piece and action item for the HUD consultant is to do the feasibility study on the front end. The feasibility study,
critical. I just wanted to interject. It's critical. I want to make sure that it's critical. And when you don't have, and I'm not going to talk bad about HUD consultants, but what I will say is when you have people who are consulting with a general contractor, and that was the case on a 203K project that I had, that the consultant and the contractor knew each other, it could possibly put a damper on you getting the project done in a way in which is, as Vaughn alluded to, is actually per the scope, is actually permits are actually correct, and that everything is done up to code. And I know Vaughn is going to definitely in here explain what happens when it doesn't happen. So I'm gonna give the floor back to him. I just wanted to make sure I interjected that one piece.
No, I appreciate that, Rachel. So, yeah, that really is a conflict of interest. So, in theory, while I am able to refer general contractors to project owners for an FHA 203K homestyle or VA type of renovation loan, we have to be careful that we aren't being biased or we aren't in favor of the general contractor. And quite candidly, I also have to make sure also that I'm not showing favoritism or partiality to the project owner, because I have to make sure that at the end of the day, the lender also understands the risk involved with the project. So I am infamously known oftentimes because I am straight and narrow. I don't BS. I don't mince words. I tell people the brutal, honest truth. Let's go back to the feasibility study, because I'll kind of expound on what I mean when I talk about the truth. The feasibility study has a lot more to do than the minimum property requirements. For me, because I also have a real estate license in Illinois, I want to make sure that the project owner understands that they may have an idea of doing a full gut renovation. In other words, the only way that they will be comfortable signing up for this loan is that if they are able to achieve the scope of work items: an updated kitchen, updated bathroom, refinished floors, a back porch, whatever the case may be. That's part of their construction desire. So my job, expounding on the feasibility study, the general requirements, is to confirm whether or not the acquisition price, true construction cost, and after repair value all make sense. Again, not just based on minimum property requirements, but also your desired scope of work. So if we look at, let's talk about a 2-unit, 2-flat in the city of Chicago. Let's assume that a 2-unit, brick 2-unit in Chicago has an after repair value of $300,000. Let's say that a person has been approved for $350,000. Let's just say that. Let's say the acquisition price is $250,000. Well, if the acquisition price is $250,000, the after repair value is $300,000. Even though you've been pre-approved for $350,000, you can't spend $350,000 because the value isn't there. So now that means you only have $50,000 to work with. Now, let's say that you have $50,000 to work with, but the property actually needs $300,000 worth of work. In reality, the project is not feasible for a plethora of reasons, but fundamentally because the after repair value doesn't support the investment needed for the construction. The after repair value also doesn't even support what you've been pre-approved to spend. Some people, and I'm not making comments about any HUD consultants, no general contractors, no realtors, or whatever the case may be. But some people in the industry will say, yeah, just write it up for $50,000 and make it work. I will tell you, quite frankly, Rachel, a lender that I normally don't work with, this is a smaller lender, a newer lender. This one lender asked me to just make it work.
Mm.
Just to make the deal close so that they would get their commission for the deal closing. The project was never feasible.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we had a homeowner who had a dream, because I tell everyone that at this point, you had a homeowner who had a dream to invest, and a dream to bring property value, to bring value add to that property. And they were, maybe they even knew, but they didn't really understand that where's the rest of the money going to come from? Because if you are paying $250,000 for the property and you only have $50,000 to repair the property, and it needs $300,000 to make it livable up to your standards, you're living in and lack of a better word, of a cracker box, because you only have $50,000 and you have to make that stretch. And right now you can barely get drywall and paint for $50,000. And I'm speaking for somebody who just completed a basement rehab, a duplex from the first floor to a lower level, and it cost me $100,000.
Exactly.
And we're just talking about a duplex. Nothing on the second floor was touched. And only thing on the first floor was touched was a cut of a bedroom and stairs leading to the lower level. So there was nothing done on the first floor, just an addition to the basement and a basement layout. And exactly. And as people who are watching the 203K Behind the Bricks, you all know that project it went 6.5 months, and a lot of things transpired during that time. And the reason why a lot of things transpired, because Vaughn was not available when I bought the property, and I don't say that because he's on the line. Vaughn was called. He was called because of the fact that I needed someone who was going to be brutally honest. I am not an emotional person, not when it comes to money. And I tell people, I can be emotional when it comes to family, friends, but when it comes to dollars and cents, it comes on how I'm going to be able to make something work. You have to make sure that you have the correct information. And Vaughn was that person that was going to give me that correct information. I would have probably never bought the property if Vaughn had came and took a look. But
so Rachel, let me stop you right there, because I'm glad you said that. So in the example that I just used, my numbers were slightly high. We were in Chicago. So right now, the city of Chicago has probably more than 10,000 vacant properties that are dilapidated. Okay.
It's sad. Sorry, sorry, I had to say that.
Yeah. So let me say this. It is a known fact right now, and this has been shared by a city of Chicago division, a business group. For years, I have been trying to inform people that the after repair value on homes or buildings in predominantly Black neighborhoods, these neighborhoods that have been historically disinvested, the after repair value does not support the true total construction cost of that building. Let me say something. For years, people have given me pushback. They fought me on that. Even before the city of Chicago, through one of their businesses, released this information, which I will give you the quote in a couple of seconds, I always told people, okay, if you don't believe me, go take a look at your insurance policy documentation.
It's on their page.
Look at the replacement value of the building. Even though you may have bought the building for $300,000, the replacement value might be $500,000. Why? Because it costs that much money to rebuild the home. It has nothing to do with the after repair value. This has everything to do with the true construction cost, which is tied to the cost of living for that region. Now, let me say this. There is a Chicago program that's out there right now. I won't say the name of the program. I won't say it right now. This program says definitively, and I'm paraphrasing right now, in order for properties in disinvested areas, Black communities, to have renovations. These projects require substantial subsidies because the after repair value doesn't support the cost to legally renovate the buildings and or homes following the updated City of Chicago building code requirements, which, by the way, just changed for the first time in 70 years, effective August 1st, 2020. So that
unfortunately I'm aware of that because it just cost me another 25 grand because of those ordinances of a 3-flat house. You have to put stairs on it with a Juliet balcony. So it just cost me another 25 grand. So I'm very aware of the new ordinance. Go ahead.
That's
I'm
right.
sorry.
That's
Go
right.
ahead.
So, then also consider this. We talked about the lead-based pipes a little while ago, before we came on air. Okay. The City of Chicago has the highest number of lead-based water service lines out of any city in the entire country. There are almost 400,000 lead-based water service lines that Chicago needs to replace. Naturally, the city does not have that amount of money because the cost that has been shared with the entire world from the City of Chicago is approximately $28,000 per water service line. Wow. Okay, so if you are a general contractor, or let's say you're somebody who is buying a property and you want to leverage a 203K renovation loan or some other type of renovation loan, the building department now says, okay, no problem. You want to do a full gut renovation and you want to add a bathroom and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? You pay for the water service line. So now, not only are you required to do the minimum standards to meet the building code requirements, you're also now required to replace the water service line that the City of Chicago is federally mandated to replace. But they can now shift the burden to you because via the building code requirements and say, listen, you pay for it now. Thank you very much.
Oh, hey, I want to interject this. In both of my projects, have had this conversation with my GC. It just happens to be the only reason I didn't have to replace it is because my building was a 6-unit building and it already had the supply, so I didn't have to replace it. Because I asked, because I was like, hey, if I have to replace it, that's a no to the building. Because as I said, I have the 3 buildings and they're right next door to each other, and I made sure I asked questions. You have to ask those questions to make sure that you do all of those, that due diligence ahead of time. That is what due diligence is for. And the feasibility study that Vaughn provides as a HUD consultant, these are all things that you utilize when you're determining whether you want to move forward with a project or not. So I'll say why for Vaughn, where people don't, they get afraid when they hear Vaughn's name because he's going to tell you the truth. And you guys remember A Few Good Men where you couldn't handle the truth? and that's what it all boils down to, that people can't handle the truth. And I would rather come from a point of understanding all my costs and making a determination before I sign my name on that line of this is what it could cost on the high end. Even if Vaughn is putting it on the high end, I want the high end because sometimes that high end is exactly what it ends up being. So, I mean, we'll go with the lumber costs. Lumber costs, they skyrocketed over the last 3 years. Now, if you had to use Vaughn's numbers, you most likely were already prepared. But let's say you use the contractor's numbers that they gave you. They didn't put in their mind that the futures of wood were going to go up. So when the futures of the wood went up, they were now $100,000 more for full gut rehab. So, I mean, this is just, I'm speaking for what I know, not for what I see on the news. This is what really happened from 2020 to 2024. Those future prices skyrocketed from 2019, 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
I mean, Vaughn's the expert, but I'm just speaking a little bit about what things I have seen in the industry.
Yeah, so you know what, Rachel, I'm glad you said that, because see, in my feasibility reports right now, I show people the future price indices of various raw materials. So I'm demonstrating to people that I'm not just pulling numbers from thin air. And again, so maybe that's one reason why people are somewhat, I shouldn't say afraid of me. Some people just don't like me because I turn dreams into nightmares. There is an entire ecosystem. And so let me stop real quick. I assume you invited me on because you want me to just give it to you raw.
Absolutely.
I'm going to give it to you straight.
We want Vaughn on here, so when you guys get a 203K loan, you're able to say, hey, when a consultant is talking to you, hey, what about this? What about that? And if you're in the Chicagoland area, you can contact Vaughn. I'm hoping he's back into doing HUD consultants. But I said during the time when I bought my house my properties in June, he wasn't available. But he was available for the one that I looked at in March.
Keep this in mind. There is an entire ecosystem that exists off of incorrect information. Again, I'm not knocking any HUD consultants or any other real estate professional in the industry, but let's talk about business. There is an ecosystem that's built on someone not understanding the true costs of construction, misinformation, wrong information, and flat out lies. There are people who get paid for someone not knowing. There's a long list of people who I can show you get paid, and get paid well, off of some other person's ignorance. Quite frankly, it's really the foundation of the zero-sum game economic theory. In order for someone else to win and be profitable, somebody else has to lose.
Yes.
That's the fundamentals of the zero-sum game theory. So that entire ecosystem that exists, it flourishes if you don't know the truth. I tell the truth. So that means, and I'll even share some data with you later on about illegal renovations in the city of Chicago. I did a full year study on that, and the numbers are flooring. I mean, they're like really bad. But just consider how many properties, how many projects would not occur if someone like myself comes in and does a feasibility study on all of these properties that are on the market right now that are eligible for 203K. A lot of people would not close deals. Because again, Chicago has now told us, they've said it, that the after repair values do not substantiate the true cost of construction without substantial subsidies. And there are some subsidies out there, by the way. If you recall, the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, just announced $1.2 billion that's now earmarked for development. 625 million of that is really allocated for projects like this that we're talking about, renovation projects. A meeting that I was at before this interview, I was in one of those meetings, and they were talking about the subsidy programs that are going to be released to get these properties done. So when I do a feasibility study, I'm coming at people with all this data, telling them the acquisition price is too high. Yes, I know you have a dream of owning a home or house hacking or whatever the case may be. But if you buy this property and this property is listed on the market, let's say it's a Chicago style bungalow, it needs a full gut renovation. The list price is $100,000. The maximum ARV is $300,000. I can tell you from writing up a number of these renovations, true cost renovations, that you need about $300,000 to do a legal full gut renovation on a very small standard 1,000 square foot bungalow, plus doing the attic and basement.
So Vaughn, I wanna ask a question in here. Now,
Please.
I know that we've been talking about legal and illegal. We haven't said the word illegal. So if you can you expound on what an illegal renovation actually consists of and how people get suckered into it? I mean, I know one way, but I want to see if that's the same way that you'll have. So please share with us.
So phenomenal questions. Let me first say that according to the City of Chicago Administrative Handbook, the word in fact is illegal. They literally can arrest you and fine you and or do time in prison for doing an illegal renovation. So, what is an illegal renovation? It comes in many shapes and forms and sizes. First off, let's say a property needs a full gut renovation, full modernization, and we see them all the time. Let's say the project owner wants, let's say it's a Chicago style brick bungalow. Let's say the project owner wants to create an open concept. They want to create this expansive living room, dining room, kitchen layout, and they want to add another second story and finish the attic and finish the basement. But the general contractor they select pulls what's called an easy permit, and the easy permit says doors and drywall replacement, and that's it. That is an illegal renovation. Happens very frequently, 85% of the time, according to 2023 data, which I'll tell you more about a little bit later on. That's one version of an illegal renovation. Another illegal renovation could be someone who pulls the same type of permit, never has any inspections done. The building requirement says if you pull a permit, let's say you are replacing some toilets and some bathtubs and you're doing plumbing updates, et cetera, that permit requires a rough inspection. So you can pull a permit and says, yep, I'm replacing toilets. I'm going to replace not water service lines, but supply lines behind the wall to supply my new toilet, to supply my new sinks. That requires a rough inspection. You can do an entire project and not have an inspection. That's illegal. Another situation, which I found in the data, is where someone pulls the correct permits and they only have rough inspections. They never get the final inspections. That's an illegal renovation.
And Vaughn, with that information, how does the homeowner, what do they do to keep themselves from being
hoodwinked,
preyed upon in this way? Because as the homeowner, you don't know the inspections weren't done. You're taking the information from your general contractor that the inspections have been complete, everyone is done, and they close it up. So, and if you can expound upon what happens when the city finally finds out that you didn't get your permit.
Ooh, my goodness.
You did not get your inspections.
Okay, so the first question, how can a project owner kind of control that? So a couple of ways. The first way is that you contact me. I can manage your project for you to make sure that all the inspections are done, all the right permits are pulled, et cetera, et cetera. The other way is that you can ask or command and instruct your general contractor to add you as a contact person on the permit and on the inspections. So when they request an inspection, the building department will notify you about the inspections. The project owner can go out to the property also when the inspector shows up. So that's one way. Now, what happens if a permit is not pulled and the city finds out about it? The first thing, which is the easy outcome and the best outcome, is that you just get a stop work order and you pay the fine. And then you have to pull the right permits. That's the best outcome. worst outcome, which happens a lot, is that they give you a stop work order and they say, oh, you just finished your basement. I see. Tear all the walls out. Let me inspect what work you've done. That happens more than people realize. And if they pull the permit and it's the wrong permit, and if you did some framing, whether it be structural or non-structural work, the building department via the inspector will say, okay, bring an architect onto this project now. So now, not only are you tearing down all those walls, but you must start the process all over again, which is more cost, more time, et cetera, et cetera. That's the worst case, tearing it down. And that's pretty bad, because if you've spent, like in your case, $100,000 plus for a basement, in Chicago, a lot of people think they can do basements illegally. Now, if you are a homeowner and you're paying cash, okay, whatever. People do that all the time. It's wrong, but I get it. But when we're talking about a 203K renovation or a subsidized renovation, and you have depleted your funds and you've done something in an illegal way, you're in a bad situation. Because now there's no money left to tear down and start all over again. So what do you do? Now let me stop right there for a second, because you said something earlier about total cost. I want to come back to that. The total cost is a lot more than the hard construction cost. The total cost of your project that needs to be considered when doing a feasibility study or when evaluating any project is the cost of construction, the soft costs, which could be your architect fees, your permit fees, dumpster fees, porta potty fees, security fees, et cetera, et cetera. But there's this other cost that people sometimes seem to forget about. It's the holding cost.
I'm gonna say the holding cost. That's the cost that gets you. Because right now, I had to say for honesty, currently, as I said, I told you guys I'm very transparent with my channel. Currently, my mortgage for the property is a little over $4,800 a month. Currently, I have been waiting for the city of Chicago and a permit for the last 6 months. I can't even do any work on the building until that permit is completed, because it's a full gut rehab and I needed an architect. And each department must now sign off that the architect's drawings are okay for us to start the work. So for 6 months, I've been paying the $4,800 because I cannot put any tenants in it. It's a full gut rehab. So those holding costs, and that doesn't include, once they start actually doing work, you gotta get electric, you gotta get water. So those are holding costs that people, you don't put those in there, and 203K loans only give you 6 months of it. But also, I'm gonna share something else in here about a lot of times for 203K loans, and you can stop me if I'm wrong, Vaughn, that you have, 9 months?
Yeah, it's about to change right now, just so you know.
I'm going to tell a story about mine. So mine is over 9 months right now. So currently, my lender has advised that they're going to charge $1,000 a month for every month that I'm over. However, the particular bank, because it's a city of Chicago reason why I'm not working, we're working on extreme circumstances that for me not. So that means that instead of $4,800 a month, they want to charge me $6,000 for every month after March that we've been waiting for the project to stall. We're stalled because we're waiting for the permits from the city. But yeah, these are costs that you don't think of.
But I do. And so this is what I include in my feasibility studies, because that's a tremendous risk. In the city of Chicago, if you're doing a full gut renovation, and I've shared this with HUD, by the way, in writing. I gave HUD a full report with data. which shows the performance of the city of Chicago in processing permits. So you are fortunate that they're only charging you $1,000 as a penalty. I have not seen a full gut renovation in Chicago take less than 18 months. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, Rachel. So if you want to do a legal full gut renovation, if it's a building, you probably need to be prepared for 24 months worth of construction. Now, let me stop there. You mentioned 6 months for your architect. There's a way that you can expedite that. Now, I'm a permit expediter. I do have a license in Chicago as a permit expediter. Depending on the skill set of your architect, the architect can self-certify. I don't encourage that anymore, but they can self-certify.
Yeah, originally the architect that I picked, he is an architect who could self-certify with the city.
Yep.
However, he had things going on in his life that made it whereas he was unable to do the service. So I did get an expediter to expedite. So we're in the expedited period right now. So I just recently resubmitted for the 6th time.
Yep.
I want to make sure there's been 6 revisions that have been requested from the city, and these are, from what I hear, are common. It's common practice that there are little things that they, and each time they're asking something different. They're not asking for the same thing. So as it goes through each of the departments, each department is saying, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? As opposed to, I mean, I just think of when I was in leadership, as a leader, you have everyone do it, and then you send that back to the person and say, fix all of this. But that's not how it happened. Each department and each person came back, and that's another 10 to 15 days, business days, of the city overlooking it again. So every time they send it back, it's another 3 weeks.
Yeah, there's so many different directions we can take this conversation in right now,
yeah,
Rachel. Because
like I said, we're gonna refocus on.
Yeah.
But all of these things are things that actually happen on 203K loans, because I'm speaking from experience of having a 203K loans, and these are things that have actually occurred during the time.
Yeah.
And these are things that are going to be needed for you. And we'll have other episodes where I'll talk about the lending portion of it, where we'll talk more about how architects work. So we'll bring Vaughn back to he's an expert in all of this, but we'll bring it back to where we're talking about as a HUD consultant. And as you heard, there a lot of the information he's providing is information that he gives a homeowner who's looking to actually have a 203K loan.
Yep.
So even though we got off a little bit, we started going down the path of what's going on, but a lot of this is actually all tied back into what a 203K loan and things that happen on a 203K project.
Directly tied to a 203K project, because you have to jump over all these hurdles to get to the finish line on a 203K project. Now, in your case, you're only being charged $6,000. Now, I haven't shared this story yet publicly, but there's a project that I just kind of wrapped up, so to speak, recently. The reason why it wrapped up is because it was approaching its 4th year on the books, no end in sight, all the money was depleted. A general contractor had to file bankruptcy because the project owner didn't listen to me 4 years ago when I told them that their target renovation budget was too low. Long story short, they've gone through multiple general contractors. This most recent general contractor had to file bankruptcy. This property has now gone into foreclosure, a 203K. Why? Because the budget was wrong to begin with. 4 years later, you have a terrible situation where you have a lender who has to take back a property. You have a project owner who now has a foreclosure on their credit, and you have a general contractor who lost tools because this GC's tools were kept in the property because the project owner wouldn't let them get back into the property to get the tools because they were upset about everything that happened with this entire project. So not only did that GC have to file bankruptcy, this GC also lost their tools. This is one of the worst situations, but not uncommon, because it is very common for a 203K or home style renovation loan in Chicago to stretch into 2 years, 3 years. And again, if you only were pre-approved to spend $300,000, including your 6 months worth of mortgage payments, what do you do when that project is now in the 7th month, and then 24th month, and then 36 months, and you have no place to live? You can't live in that building, and you must pay the mortgage payment for that building or that home, plus rent to stay someplace else. So now that $200,000 or $300,000 renovation budget that you thought you needed to finish this project can double, without exaggeration, before you know it. Again, this is not meant to alarm anyone. It's meant to give people the truth and equip them with the right information to make the right decisions so that they are not ruined financially for the rest of their life. There is a strategy that you can execute with a 203K renovation loan and any other renovation loan if you listen to the expert, so-called expert, who understands the system. I can convey to people the best strategy. Yes, you may not have a full gut renovation with, level 5 finished drywalls and brand new floor. You may not have all of that, but you will have a clean, safe, functional home that you can quickly move into. And now you can leverage some of the equity that may exist and then maybe do another phase of your project a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever the case may be. Real estate and making money off real estate is not an overnight situation. It's long term. We must teach and educate the people who have been left out of this American fundamental of prosperity. We must show them this is how you do it. The millionaires and billionaires of the world didn't become millionaires and billionaires overnight.
Absolutely not.
I just read an article maybe yesterday where Warren Buffett, the majority of Warren Buffett's wealth has come within the last 10, 15 years. Yes, he's been growing wealth for decades, but because of the economy and how our global market, ebbs and flows more aggressively now, he has made a ton of money in these last few decades, so to speak. If we look at the Berkshire Hathaway Common A stock, if you look at the value of that Common A stock 30 years ago, I think it was around $2,700 per share. Maybe it was 40 years ago. Look at it now. What is it, like $300,000 per share? So if you would invested $3,000 30 or 40 years ago and didn't do anything, you would have $300,000, $400,000 right now just in investing one share of stock. Same thing with real estate. You cannot achieve what you see on social media, all those wonderfully rehabbed homes.
and that's the reason for my channel, to explain that those beautiful rehabs. Like, at the end of my basement rehab, well, my duplex rehab, it's gorgeous. But it took 7 months. 6 months, and lots of headache And we got rid of a GC, and my son, well, I said this, my family, we all got together 2 nights for 19 hours, finished the paint off, finished putting up the extra stuff, and it just becomes from the fact of that I have done construction in the past. So if I had never had done construction in the past, I would have had to pay someone else to come in and finish it off, because we didn't have, the sink wasn't hooked up. There were so many little things that were not done. But at the end of the day, it comes that you have to equip yourself with the correct knowledge and make sure that you make your informed decision. And for what Vaughn said about the 4-year project, you have to know when to get out. You have to know when to say when.
When to say when.
You have to know when to say when. And if that person had been paying mortgage, because they most likely stopped paying mortgage in year 2. And because the bank was just trying to recoup their money, was hoping that the project would get finished out, they just could continue allowing them to keep the property. Because there were so many things that you could do to save your home, which we'll talk about in later episodes. But at the end of the day, you have to know when to say when, and you have to make sure that you make an informed decision, which is the purpose of this channel and the purpose of bringing Vaughn on with all his expertise. Now, we probably could talk for another 2 hours and we still would not tap the surface of what Vaughn could teach. But I will say that I did talk to Vaughn about coming out with us on Black Friday and on New Year's Eve, and maybe sharing some insight that will help you make a successful choice for 2025. So be on the lookout for that. So I'm gonna give I got a couple of questions for Mr. Vaughn, because I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about certain communities, especially if you're in the Chicago area. Ooh. And make sure that we dive a little bit into that real quick, because I don't want, because as you know, Vaughn is a very busy person. So
we all are very busy. Yep.
Very busy. So I will say this. So we talked about repairs, the industry of repairs, and it being a business. And that's why repair costs are given in a way that they are provided. They're provided on a low end because someone still wants their homes finished. So they still pay the higher price because they still want what they want. Because sometimes you have that dream and it's hard to let go of the dream and live in the reality of that you could get that 69 cents tile as opposed to the $1.79 a square foot tile. Or instead of getting the granite countertop, where right now it's not granite, now where we have the composite counter, the quartz and the composite
Calcutta quartz.
Yeah. So now you have the quartz countertop, which I won't get for my property, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, you have, and these are the finishes that you see on HGTV, and these are the things that you see out there in the world. However, if you're doing the work yourself, sometimes you can pay a higher cost. But when you're paying for the labor as well as the cost of the actual product, you can't spend HGTV money. You have to spend GC money plus whatever material you can get within your budget. You have to be cognizant of those things. That's the only way to be successful in a business. Things that are outside of you, think of it this way: TV is for entertainment. And if TV is for entertainment purposes, you have to treat it as such. It's there to entertain you. And that's with the lifestyles that we see on TV, as well as the projects that we see on TV. It's meant to entertain. Most TV right now is reality TV. If reality TV means that this is someone's life, these are people's lives. They get paid to get on these shows to show you guys a lifestyle. So at the end of the day, it goes to, I have 3 properties that are over multi-million-dollar properties because in the area they're in, which we're going to talk about right now, I end up settling on properties in the Woodline area. So my question to you is, as I have recently purchased an investment property in Woodline, what impact do you believe the higher price developments in the area have on the neighborhood being able to maintain its current cultural status? That's a question I really wanted to ask you. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I normally don't give any thoughts. I tell you what the data says.
Remember what I said, statistical.
That's right. That's right. So, first off, when you look at the city of Chicago, you have 3 major demographics. You have white, black, and Hispanic. When we look at all predominantly black neighborhoods in Chicago, the median income, Rachel, for all black neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhoods in Chicago, $38,000 per year. Okay, when we compare the highest median income in predominantly black neighborhoods, if we compare that to the lowest median income of predominantly white neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhood highest income is lower than the lowest median income in predominantly white neighborhoods. Now, when we look at some of the areas like a Woodlawn, Bronzeville, some of these more affluent areas, the data would show that yes, while they're building and rehabbing properties that have ARVs of $800,000, $900,000, $1 million plus, there is a limited population of people who can acquire those properties. So think about the direction of Chicago. I'm not going to get into the politics right now because we could, but think about the direction of Chicago. Now, if you think also about the entire population of our country, think about how much money black people make corporately on the whole. Think about the type of jobs that a lot of black people have. It's well known that if you look at some of these larger scale economic initiatives, for some strange reason, they're pushing blue collar jobs to blacks. But the data shows that blue collar jobs may not be sustainable in an AI generated world. So why am I saying all that? Okay, so if you are working in a blue collar job, again, nothing wrong with a blue collar job. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with that. However, if that blue collar job pays you $60,000 or $70,000, and the median home value in our country right now is like $400,000. The median income of a home in Chicago, I think, is maybe $300,000. Don't quote me on that, but it's not too far from the median average price in the country. If you're only making $60,000 or $70,000 with the standard type of living, maybe you have a car loan, maybe you have student loans. The numbers say, based on debt-to-income ratios, you can't afford a house for $300,000 or $400,000. So if you can't buy a house for $300,000 or $400,000, how can you buy a house for $1 million?
You can't.
You can't. So how does the community sustain itself long term if the largest portion of your community is making an income not high enough to even afford that property? Now consider this. If that $800,000 property that you build and sell brings up the value of the home that the blue collar person or lower income person lives in, they can't even tap into the wealth and equity of that property through refinancing. Why? Because they don't have enough money to pay the equity that they can leverage in that property. So the equity that you have, you can never get until you die and pass the value down to someone else. And hopefully they'll be able to make enough money to leverage the equity in that property, or you sell the property and you get the money that way. But then if you sell the property, where are you going to buy a home?
Not in that area.
In that area. So then what do you do? So again, while I know that those are phenomenal projects, I applaud those projects. We need those projects. But let's look at the data long term and figure out does it really make sense to have $1 million home on the same block where you've got a $200,000 property and the block is hot? And when I say the block is hot, I mean with crime activity and everything else that brings property values down. Again, I'm not complaining and I'm not criticizing, but I'm looking at the data. And again, zero-sum game economic theory. Somebody's gonna make some money. And some people, somebody will be wealthy and they'll be able to get a slice of that American pie, but then there's a large population of people who are going to lose. That is unsustainable.
The reason why I asked the question, and I'm going to be, I was a little self-serving with it, but I wanted to make sure I asked it of someone who looked at more data than I do. And I'll say the reason why me and Vaughn, we mesh so much because I am very data driven. When I was looking at those properties, when Vaughn gave me the feasibility study, I was able to mirror what he was talking about because I had done my research on what the neighborhoods were, what the property values were in the neighborhood, what my value add could be, and if I could afford to refinance out of the house. Because exactly what he is saying is that I'll utilize my own particular block. There's currently 3 projects on my block. One I have on my refrigerator. I want you guys to know I can't wait till it sells for 1.1 million because it's an identical match for my property. Now I don't plan to sell. I plan to refinance out of it and buy more property. However, as Vaughn states, if you can't afford the mortgage of $1 million, it doesn't matter how much equity you have in your house. So that is what he's saying. That even so, if that property sells for 1.2 million, what I did was I calculated how much money do I have to make to be able to get the 2.2 million dollar evaluation and be able to refinance out of it. And I know where I need to be. So I need to be at $328,000. That's what my income needs to be at to be able to do so. Now, I say this humbly. In my career, I was making six figures. So I could possibly have done exactly what I want to do. So, but I was fortunate. And the only reason my fortune comes from my being fortunate comes from the hard work I put in and the dedication I put in, and me understanding that even though blue collar jobs are necessary, a blue collar job was not going to allow me to build generational wealth. Now, I was a blue collar worker. I started off unloading trucks by hand on a dock. And I knew, and as I tell you, when I became the CEO of my own life in 2004, I understood that if I wanted to go further, there was more I had to do, more work I had to put in. So it's understanding those numbers and understanding that information. Now, I want to make sure that this episode doesn't scare you. It's meant to give you the hardcore facts of what a 203k loan can be, what it can do, but it also has the side of it makes it, you have the ability to buy a property, renovate that property, and have a value add that actually gives you equity in your property. You just have to be very smart about what you're doing. And remember, HGTV is for entertainment purposes. And understanding that if you're trying to build wealth, you must build it with actual data, with actual information, and make sure that you make your decisions based upon that information and not what you see on TV. So that's the reason why I brought Vaughn on here, to give you that hardcore fact. Because those are facts that I couldn't provide because I knew that he knew the numbers better than any of us know. And I have one last thing I want to ask Vaughn. And so my question to you, Vaughn. So me and you were in a very similar situation where we left corporate America and decided to pursue our passions. So considering that you've been out of corporate America a lot longer than I have, what are your goals for the next year, the next 3, and the next 5? And so what does Vaughn's life look like in the next year, in 3 years?
So that is a phenomenal question. So candidly, I have considered going back into corporate America only because of the amount of money that some of these organizations are basically throwing out right now. And I have the potential of working remotely. So, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, I always talked about escaping the plantation. Hopefully I can say that.
Everyone knows that they don't want to, everyone has a idea that they don't want to work anymore. They want to be off the plantation. However,
Okay.
to be off the plantation, you got to be able to survive.
Yeah,
make sure that.
So, I escaped the plantation back in 2016, and I've seen a lot. And Chicago is a very, very dynamic market in more ways than one. Not just real estate, not just construction. Chicago is not dynamic in a plethora of ways. But yeah, in the next year, I'll probably either have a really nice contract, working with a few developers, working with a few different organizations who are kind of pulling me right now to help them build out their strategic roadmap for the next 5 to 10 years. If those contracts come to fruition, and if the money is right and we land on a good number that I'm comfortable with, I'll probably say, yeah, corporate America, I don't need to go back to. If the numbers don't work out the way I want them to work out, then I'll probably go back to corporate America in some way, shape, or form. That could be, a temporary contractor, could be, W-2, maybe, could be a 1099 contractor, something like that. But it could be, one of those areas. We talked about data. I'm big into data science. So I use Tableau a lot. I use Minitab a lot of statistical software. Organizations right now need that a lot, whether that be a privately held organization or even government organizations. Need data science, need engineers, need project and program managers with experience. So a lot of opportunity. So that's one path. The other path is, I'll just continue, doing what I'm doing right now. There are tons of grant programs out there. A lot of businesses who need people to help them prepare their packages, their pro formas, their capital stacks, their renderings, budgets, roadmaps. So I could also work with organizations in that regard, small, privately held organizations, people who own their own company. So I can do that as well. So right now it's kind of fluid. It depends on, what contracts come at me and what contracts I am able to solidify in the next 6 months, to be honest with you.
Okay. So, and I also wanted to, and this is my final question for Vaughn. Now, I know that you have put out there that you are looking to help small businesses be able to. I don't remember correctly completely, but I know that you were willing to help small businesses create pro formas, create statistical information, and to help them understand how to be profitable over the next year, 3 years, 5 years, because most small businesses go out of business within 5 years. So I know you had an initiative where you were looking to help small businesses. If you could expound upon what that looks like, so if there's business owners out there, they know that. So Vaughn is just not a one-trick pony. He has so many tricks, it's incredible.
Yeah. So, that really is what I did when I left corporate America. As a program manager, the executives would say, okay, Vaughn, here's your program. We need to save X millions of dollars over a period of time. My yearly budget was around 40 million in corporate, and my program value was around $500 million. So I would, using data, tell the organization what direction they need to go in and what projects they should work on. Again, with data. I do the exact same thing and have been doing the exact same thing for years outside of corporate, and that is working with small organizations, small businesses, to figure out what projects must we work on to remain profitable. And I do that in helping them with their grant writing, as an example. So again, there are a lot of grant dollars out there. As we talk about like the Build Back Better infrastructure bill, if you may recall, that Build Back Better infrastructure bill was made into law 2022, give or take. There are billions of, really, there's $1 trillion package, I believe. But there are billions of dollars out there for small businesses to get a hold of. Illinois DCEO grants, USDA grants, Chicago Recovery Grant, Chicago Neighborhood Opportunity Fund grants. These are all grants that exist that are really available for small businesses. But a small business needs to understand first, what do their numbers look like? Are we even operating efficiently? I do something called zero-based budgeting. That's a bad word to some people because zero-based budgeting says, okay, do we have the right number of resources to do these projects or to operate? Zero-based budgeting says, yeah, well, you've approved 5 projects for this fiscal year and you only need 10 resources. But if you've got 20 resources, that means your 10 resources too heavy. You need to right size. It's nothing personal. It's nothing emotional. If you want to sustain yourself in this hyper global economy, we are approaching sentient AI. You have to make a tough decision. What do you want to do to survive? Zero-based budgeting shows you how to do that. Building your strategic roadmap shows you how to do that. So I do that today for a number of businesses, helping them to understand what projects should they accept and execute based on data for them to be profitable. What communities should I open my business in? I'm looking at data. The data is out there. The data will tell you exactly where to invest without guessing. Nothing emotionally involved. It's dollars and cents at the end of the day, and you cannot be afraid to make a tough decision for your sustainability based on dollars and cents. That's what I do, and that is what I'm passionate about. And I bring all of that into FHA 203K renovations, home style renovations, grant writing, project management, program management, and even construction, new construction, redevelopment, residential, commercial, and industrial. I bring all of those skills into all of those diverse industries. Why? So that we can be sustainably profitable. That's my passion. That is my direction. So wherever I'm working in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, it's always going to be in a direction where I can provide tangible value, nothing warm and fuzzy, dollars and cents.
And that is what it's about at the end of the day. That was a very good way to end the episode. Because at the end of the day, a 203K loan is about you checking your dollars and cents at the door and making sure that you are using dollars and cents, S-E-N-S-E. I want to make sure that at the end of the day, that is what you're doing. You want to take in information, get you a HUD consultant. Vaughn, how do the people get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
So I am doing HUD consulting again, and thank you for that. So if you want a HUD consultant who will give you honest feedback and will give you a strategy for success, you can reach out to me. My office phone number is 708-918-4508, and my email address is Vaughn@vaughnharrison.com. And perhaps you can put that in the video later on.
Yeah, all of that will be in the show notes. And I will say, at the end of the day, guys, you want to make sure that you are about your success. So I want to thank Vaughn for gracing us with his presence today and providing some great nuggets that I hope that you guys were listening. Now, I would say rewind it back, watch it a couple of times, because there's some nuggets in there that you're gonna have to write down. I'll tell you this, I was with my pen and paper, and I'm gonna have the transcript. So I even have my pen and paper out because I want to make sure that I touch base with Vaughn on those particular subjects. At the end of the day, to be successful, you have to be minding your own business. So until next time, I want you guys to be up, out, and moving to the greatness we all know lies within who? You. See you next week.